There is a problem silently creeping into the Canadian housing market. And no, it's not foreign buyers, but it is going to be a bad omen for those looking to buy a house in Canada. What is it? Find out on this year's September 2021 Canadian Real Estate Market Update. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Prairie Real Estate. If you're a returning viewer, thanks very much for coming back. And if you're new here, my name is Matthew Fife. I'm a real estate agent from Regina, Saskatchewan, and I want to educate you all about real estate. Going past the headlines, looking at the data, analyzing it, and talking with real estate agents in these markets, you're seeing a pattern in Toronto, Vancouver, Montreal, but it's expanding across Canada to a number of Canadian cities. And if you want to jump to any city I cover in this update, I'll put it in the timeline right here. There's also always timestamps in the description. And if you are thinking about buying a house, I can guarantee you, I know a fantastic real estate agent in your city. I always put my contact information below. You can reach out to me. I'm happy to get you set up there. But before we get in this Canadian housing market update, we got to start like we always do with another terrible joke. I went to the beekeeper the other day. I asked for a dozen bees. He gave me 13. I said, "Sir, you gave me one extra bee." He said, "Don't worry, it's a freebie." If you have a terrible joke that I can use in a future episode of Prairie Real Estate, put it in the comments below. And if you love this content, give me the like, hit the subscribe, share it on social media, Reddit, Twitter, everywhere. Let's get this out to as many people as possible. We are seeing things in the Regina real estate market level back off to more typical patterns at this time of year, but make no mistake, it's still a very active market in the city of Regina. With 314 homes sold in a month, that is down about 9.5% from last year, but it's up nearly 8% from the 5-year average, which is about 290 homes sold in the month. And year to date, just the first 8 months of the year, there's been as many homes sold in Regina as the entire year for the 5-year average. The 480 new listings that came on the market, that's down 2% from last year, and it's down 1% from the 5-year average, which is about 485 homes listed for sale in the month. There are under 1,200 homes for sale right now in Regina. That's down 2% from last year and down 15% from the 5-year average, which is a little over 1,400 homes available for sale this time of year. That means that Regina's months of inventory is about 3.7. So right just starting to touch that balanced market category, but that is a little bit deceiving. There are absolutely market segments that are still sellers markets, while others are definitely in the balanced or buyer's market territory. The composite benchmark price in Regina continues to rise, although that pace of price appreciation is slowing down. It's now $268,000. That is up about 5% from last year. Normally in the city of Regina, this is the time of year that we would expect to see prices flatten and even decline a little bit. We see sales activity, listing activity, and inventory all decline. They cool off with the weather, especially once the snow starts to fall. That's when you'll see a significant decline in activity in the Regina real estate market. And I think that's what we're starting to see right now, but it's still very busy. In the Victoria real estate market, they had 831 homes sold in a month. That's down 15% from last year, but it is up 8% over their 5-year average, which is about 770 homes sold in the month. There were just over 900 homes listed for sale in the month. That is down 35% from last year. It's also down almost 20% from their 5-year average, where they typically see about 1,100 homes put up for sale in the month. Last month, I said that the active inventory in Victoria was the lowest I had seen it yet this year, and it dropped even more. There's just over 1,100 homes available for sale to start the month. That's down 53% from last year, and it's also down 53% from their 5-year average. There's typically closer to 2,400 homes available for sale at this time of year in Victoria. That means the months of inventory in Victoria is 1.3. That's very squarely in a seller's market. It is actually down from last month's 1.5 months of inventory. The composite benchmark price in Victoria is about $850,000. That is up 17% from last year. And the story on the real estate market in Victoria continues to be this severe lack of inventory. That's actually a detriment now to sales. There would likely be higher sales numbers in Victoria if there were more choice available for buyers. Generally this time of year, we'd have more inventory in the market, more choices for buyers. Prices would flatten a little bit, but this severe lack of inventory is keeping that upward pressure on prices in Victoria. There is a shift happening in the Vancouver real estate market right now. I'm going to talk about that in 1 second, but they had over 3,100 homes sold in the month. That's up 3% from last year. It's up 24% from their 5-year average. It also smashed that 10-year average. Typically, there's only about 2,500 sales in the month at this time of year. That shift I'm talking about, that's in new listings and inventory. There was about 4,000 homes put up for sale last month. That is down 31% from last year. It's also down about 8% from their 5-year average. Typically, the Vancouver market would see about 4,400 homes put up for sale this time of year. Now, seeing new listings declining isn't abnormal, but not at this pace. There's way fewer listings coming on the market and it's dropping faster than it should be this time of year. At just a smidge over 9,000 active listings right now in Vancouver, that's down 31% from last year. It's down 23% from their 5-year average, where they're much closer to 12,000 active listings this time of year. And in September, usually that's when you see the most listings for sale in Vancouver. Now we've seen 3 consecutive months where active inventory has been dropping. It's going the wrong direction if you're hoping for a more balanced market in Vancouver. Their months of inventory is 2.8. That's actually dropped from last month's 2.9. The benchmark price in Vancouver, $1.176 million. That is up 13% from last year. Typically in August is when prices hit their peak. Sometimes there's a little bit of a decline through the winter. We're seeing the pace of price increases in Vancouver slow down, absolutely, but it's not dropping yet like we would kind of expect to happen around this time of year. The insight I got from local real estate agents in Vancouver was that while the overall market picture maybe looks like it's a little bit closer to balance, that 2.8 months of inventory, it is skewed by the higher end in Vancouver, where they're seeing a significant drop in demand for those higher end properties. Basically, every other market segment is still in seller's market territory. The townhouse market, pretty much across the board in the entire greater Vancouver area, is where they're seeing the most activity, mainly due to the affordability of a townhouse versus single family homes and buyers wanting the features of a townhouse because they don't want an apartment they're feeling that's too small, or they want the backyard the townhouse might offer. There's been more homes sold in Calgary in the first 8 months of this year than the total number of homes sold in any of the previous 5 years for the entire year. Yeah, that's how strong sales have been in Calgary this year. There's over 2,100 homes sold in the month. That's up 37% from last year. It's also 39% above their 5-year average, where they typically see about 1,700 sales in the month. The 2,800 new listings that came up for sale in the month, well, that's up 10% from last year. It's also up 1% over their 5-year average. We typically see about 2,900 new listings come up for sale in the month. Active inventory to start the month, about 6,000 active listings right now in Calgary. That's down 3% from last year. It's down 15% from their 5-year average, which is closer to 7,100 active listings at this time of year. That means their months of inventory is 2.8. That's still a seller's market in Calgary, exactly equal to where it was last month. The composite benchmark price, so all property types together in Calgary, that's $450,000. It's up 10% from last year. It's actually a $500 drop from the month before. This is the time of year in Calgary that if we're going to see prices decline and flatten, that's typically what we see. So this doesn't surprise me to see a little bit of a drop in prices That's typical as the weather cools off. Talking with real estate agents in Calgary, they talked about the periphery, the suburb areas still continue to see the strongest market activity. And this was really interesting that the commercial and industrial sectors are seeing a lot of growth, a lot more leases or buildings being built or being purchased. This is good news for the Calgary economy. If we're seeing commercial and industrial sectors pick up activity, that's going to continue strength in the residential side of the real estate market in Calgary. Much like in Calgary, the Edmonton real estate market has seen more homes sold year to date, so the first 8 months of the year, than they have in any of the previous 5 years for the entire year. They had over 2,000 homes sold in the month. That is up 10% from last year, and it's up 22% over their 5-year average, where they typically see about 1,700 homes sold in the month. There were about 3,200 new listings put up for sale last month in Edmonton. That's up 11% from last year. It's up 5% versus their 5-year average. We typically see about 3,000 new homes put up for sale that month. Now, the gap between the number of new listings versus the 5-year average, that has actually been decreasing, trending down here the last couple of months. The approximately 7,700 homes currently for sale in Edmonton is up about 6% from last year, but it's down 8% from their 5-year average. We're typically much closer to 8,400 active listings this time of year. That means their months of inventory is at 3.7. That's just slightly up from last month's 3.6 months of inventory. The composite benchmark price in Edmonton is about $345,000. That is up 8% from last year. Now that price has hovered around $345,000 for the last couple of months here. So prices are kind of flattening in Edmonton right now. What I did find really interesting looking kind of back through the data here, I'm gonna put these charts back up. Look at the spikes in buyer demand, and they're pretty much matched with seller demand in terms of there's a big spike in March for buyer demand, seller demand jumped in the same month, but they didn't jump by as much. Sales jumped between 50 and 90% in a month, where listings only jumped 20 to 40% in the month. But it has kept the inventory available in Edmonton kind of consistent with that 5-year trend line. It's kind of interesting to look at that, but we are seeing an overall jump in activity, which has pushed prices up in that Edmonton real estate market. Saskatoon continues to surprise me. I thought we would start to see market activity slow down, sales should be dropping this time of year, and then they went up. I don't know what the heck's going on. 492 homes sold in the month. That's up 7% from last year. It's up 31% over their 5-year average, which is close to 364 homes sold in the month. There were 735 new listings put up for sale in the month. That's down 6% from last year. It's down 3% from their 5-year average, which is about 730 homes put up for sale in the month. There's about 1,380 active listings for sale in the month in Saskatoon. That's down 12% from last year. It's down 27% from their 5-year average, which is closer to 1,900 active listings at this time of year. That means months of inventory is down to 2.8. That's down from last month's 2.9. The benchmark price in Saskatoon, that's up 13% year over year, which is $331,000. It's actually a $100 drop in that benchmark price from last year. In this cooler parts of the year, as we settle into fall and into winter, that's typical in Saskatoon to see prices drop. This yo-yoing we're seeing in terms of market activity, 1 month up, 1 month a little bit down, that's got me a little bit confused here, but it does feel like we're starting to settle out a little bit in Saskatoon, and I think we'll be getting back to more typical patterns, although I think this market activity is going to be still above the normal levels. Okay, Winnipeg, your Blue Bombers got the best of my riders last week in the Labor Day Classic. Don't worry, we got your number here in the Banjo Bowl. I'm recording this just before the Banjo Bowl starts, so I hope I don't have to eat my words when I go and edit this after the game is over. But there were 1,600 homes sold in the month. That is down 12% from last year. The 2,100 new listings put up for sale, that's down 9% from last year. The almost 3,000 active listings, that's down 25% from last year. Months of inventory is at 1.8 in Winnipeg. It's down from last month's 1.7. The benchmark price is about $317,000. That is up 10% from last year. The local insight from realtors in Winnipeg is that the Riders are a much better team than the Blue Bombers, and that buyer demand continues to be equal or greater than the inventory and the seller availability. And that's what's keeping prices up in Winnipeg. And this upward pressure is going to continue until we see more inventory coming on the market or buyer demand pulling back. That silent problem creeping into the Canadian real estate market might be most evident in Toronto. And it's not just the ever-increasing prices of homes in the Toronto real estate market and the entire GTA. I'm gonna get to this in just one second here. There was nearly 8,600 homes sold in the month. That's down 20% from last year, but it is up 4% over their 5-year average, which is about 8,300 homes sold in the month. There was about 10,600 new listings put up for sale in Toronto last month, and this is where the problem starts to rear its ugly head, because that is down 43% from last year. Okay, last year was a crazy year. It's down 26% from their 5-year average, where typically closer to 14,000 homes are put up for sale in the month in Toronto. There's 8,200 active listings in Toronto right now. That is down 55% from last year. Okay, again, last year, crazy year, numbers don't make sense. It's down 52% from their 5-year average, where they would typically see about 17,000 active listings this time of year. September is generally when the number of active listings peaks in Toronto, but we've seen a number of months in a row where that is coming down. So we've got above normal levels of demand and well below normal levels of inventory. That means months of inventory in Toronto is 0.9, less than 1 month of inventory. That's going to sustain this upward pressure in Toronto until we see substantially more listings and a drop in buyer demand. The composite benchmark price in Toronto is nearly $1.06 million. That is up 19% from last year. And I talked about it in part 1 of my Canadian housing crisis video series, that there's just not enough homes available for people to buy. Toronto is one of the worst in Canada. Canadian average is 420 homes available per 1,000 people. Toronto is 360 homes per 1,000 people. The G7 average, 470 homes per 1,000 people. Talking with local real estate agents in Toronto, one thing that I found was really interesting was what's going on in the rental market. This time last year in downtown Toronto, there were nearly 7,000 condos available to be rented. Today, that number is 1,500. And there have been more leases signed for downtown condos in the first 8 months this year than all of last year. So very clearly, rental demand is returning in Toronto. After the absolutely, utterly, insanely crazy busy we had in the spring market in Ottawa, I think we're starting to level off. It's gonna feel a little bit more normal in that Ottawa real estate market. There's about 1,570 homes sold in the month. That's down 22% from last year. It is also down 6% from their 5-year average, which is about 1,670 homes for sale, although part of that is being limited by the severe lack of inventory in Ottawa. 1 second on that. There were 2,000 new listings put up for sale in the month. That's down 19% from last year and 7% from their 5-year average, would typically be closer to 2,200 new listings put up for sale in the month. The 2,000 active listings to start the month is a much better improvement in the Ottawa market than the about 900 they had to start the year, but it is still down 1% from last year and 55% from their 5-year average, where they'd have closer to 4,500 active listings this time of year normally. There's 1.3 months of inventory in Ottawa. That is just slightly up from last month's 1.25. This added inventory is helping relieve pressure on prices, and they're also giving buyers more choices to look at, and it is going to help the overall balance in the market if we see inventory increasing. Elections also tend to slow down real estate markets, probably even more so in Ottawa than other cities where the government isn't nearly as much of a factor and an employer as it is in Ottawa. So I'm very curious to see, once this election's over, do we see a bump in activity in Ottawa, or do things continue to slow down? Is the continued dire inventory situation in the Montreal real estate market holding back sales in Montreal? Get to that in just a second here. They still had 3,300, almost 3,400 homes sold in the month. That is down 30% from last year and down 2% from their 5-year average, which is closer to 3,400 homes sold in the month. And yes, that's being held back by the lack of inventory, lack of choice, and increase in prices in the Montreal real estate market. There's just about 4,500 new listings put up for sale last month in Montreal. That is still down 28% from last year and down 11% from their 5-year average, where typically they would see more than 5,000 homes put up for sale in a month. The number of homes for sale in Montreal right now is just over 10,000. That's down 28% from last year and down a staggering 52% from their 5-year average. They would typically have closer to 21,000 homes for sale this time of year in Montreal. Months of inventory is right at 3. That is up from last month's 2.6, but it's still very much a seller's market in Montreal. The median price for homes in Montreal has dropped 2 months in a row, and that's pushing that composite benchmark price down. It's right around $500,000 in Montreal. That is still up 22% from last year. It's better than what we saw earlier, where prices were up 30% year over year. This sustained lack of inventory is hurting sales and buyer choice, so that's going to continue to put elevated pressure on prices in Montreal. But affordability is now becoming a concern. Prices are much higher than they have been, and that's been a shock to a lot of buyers in the Montreal real estate market. If you haven't been paying attention to the Halifax real estate market, it is sizzling in Halifax. They're seeing crazy sales numbers and a utter lack of inventory, pushing prices to the moon in Halifax. 519 sales last month. That is down 30% from last year, but that was a crazy month last year. They have 470 active listings, so fewer active listings than they're selling in the month. That is down 50% from last year, and last year was down 50% from the year before. Months of inventory, less than 1 month. I guess that's a little bit better than the 0.6 months of inventory they had this time last month. Average price, $450,000 in Halifax. That is up 31% from last year. Halifax continues to have probably the tightest inventory situation across Canada. They're probably seeing the biggest price gains month over month in Halifax. There's just simply way more demand and not nearly enough inventory on the resale market. They're not getting enough in the new construction market to keep up. That is going to continue to put significant upward pressure on prices in Halifax until the resale and the new construction market catches up with this crazy demand that they've been seeing for quite a while now. This is not just a 1 or 2 month thing. This is a couple of years now. They've seen sustained economic growth and upward pressure on the prices because of the demand. As you can see, cities like Toronto, Vancouver, Montreal see inventory levels well below where they should be. And this problem, it's getting worse, not better. Those cities should see high levels of inventory this time of year, and they're seeing near record lows. And this problem doesn't end there. Halifax, Ottawa, even Calgary, Edmonton, Saskatoon, Regina, these smaller centers, which had often been a little high in inventory, are now seeing inventory levels lower than they normally would be, and that's continuing to put upward pressure on prices. I talked about this lack of homes and how few homes are available in Canada in my Canadian Housing Crisis series. Part 1, which you can check out here, outlines how few homes we really have in Canada. It is staggering. And this right here is what YouTube says you need to watch next on Prairie Real Estate. As always, guys, thanks very much for watching.